What if you had a life-altering, transformative health story, a personal miracle that you knew could help billions of people? And what if, when you tried to share that story on the world's largest platform, you were shut down? Well, that's what happened to Mikhaila Peterson. She gave a TEDx talk called The Lion Diet for Autoimmune Disease back in October 26, 2019 at TEDx Roseville in Roseville, California. Mikhaila Peterson, in case you don't know, is a carnivore advocate and influencer. She's also the daughter of clinical psychologist and media commentator Jordan Peterson. Mikhaila coined the term lion diet, which is a highly restrictive elimination diet that she developed back in 2017 after struggling with autoimmune and chronic health conditions that she had had since childhood. It's an amazing story that needs to be shared, but TEDx refused to publish it, stating that her talk did not meet their standards for scientific evidence. In my opinion, given the information that she presents in this video, I believe that excuse is a lie, or at least a half-truth. It's more likely that they made the decision to censor her not just because her presentation reveals an anecdotal story about how adopting this diet resolved all her health conditions, although she does describe that in great detail, but more so because it shines a spotlight on the pharmaceutical industry's approach to illness, showing not just what a miserable failure it is, but also how dangerous it can be. This isn't just about a diet. This is about narrative control surrounding our health and the monolith that is the medical industrial complex. It's about a conversation that we're told we're not allowed to have. I know what some of you may be thinking right now. Sounds like I took off my tinfoil hat right before I recorded this, right? You're like, oh, come on. Why would the proverbial they want to censor this type of information? Well, let me answer that question with another question. Let's consider it a thought experiment. If a cure for cancer was developed tomorrow, a simple fix that was easily synthesized and readily available, do you truly believe that it would be deployed? Do you honestly think the trillion-dollar cancer treatment industry, built over a century, would be abandoned for such a simple fix? Mikhaila didn't have cancer, but she did have a mile-long list of a bunch of other horrific medical conditions that she had had since childhood. So today, we're going to watch Mikhaila's censored TEDx talk and react to her story, and then explore this larger, uncomfortable truth right here on the Carnivore Science Channel. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So the full video that was put on her channel will be in the description below in case you want to watch it without commentary. But without further ado, here we go.
Hey guys, as you may know, I did a TEDx talk in the summer about my experience with the lion diet, the all-meat diet that put my autoimmune disorder that caused crippling arthritis and gave me 2 joint replacements into remission. I followed TEDx's guidelines very carefully as I'm aware my experience with diet is anecdotal. I finished the talk asking the medical system to look into the diet further. We spent the last 4 months going back and forth with TEDx because they won't post the talk. I was the only talk from that TEDx conference that they refused to post. They said my talk went against their community guidelines, but couldn't name exactly what it went against. And it didn't. Like I said, I was really careful. Since then, Harvard has put out a study on the carnivore diet that I've linked below, showing other people who have also had success putting their diseases into remission. This is something that should be taken seriously and looked into. TEDx is supposed to be a place for new ideas and novel thinking and anecdotal reports. They have tons of vegan talks claiming veganism cures diseases, but my story didn't make it through because it violated community guidelines they can't name. So I decided to put it up here. Enjoy.
Hi.
So one thing to note is that this is what you'll see a lot of the time, is that if anything is mainstream, you know, if it's veganism or if it's the plant-based narrative, it's okay. You don't have to bring any evidence. There's nothing that you have to do. You can say basically whatever you want and you're not going to get flagged on it. But anytime that you cut out the the veg, it's not a good thing that happens. You actually get scrutinized quite a bit. So she's right about that.
My name's Mikhaila Peterson, and I'm here to talk about how I put my idiopathic autoimmune disorder and mood disorder and chronic fatigue into remission with an extreme elimination diet of only eating meat. But I will start at the beginning. When I was 2, I started walking with my feet out like a duck. And by the time I was in grade 2, I was walking downstairs 1 foot at a time, complaining that my shoes were too small. And I was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, active in 37 joints. I was put on methotrexate and naproxen to get my symptoms under control, and had cortisone injected into 17 of my joints in grade 2. I was sitting on a chair in class because I couldn't sit on the carpet, because I couldn't sit on my knees or cross my legs. I was using this really ugly fat pencil because I couldn't hold a pencil because I couldn't close my hand. When I was in grade 4, I was put on Enbrel, a biologic immune suppressant, and I started injecting myself with Enbrel and methotrexate twice a week, and I was put into a medically induced remission, and I went on all the sports teams I could go on. I went from being nearly wheelchair-bound to playing sports. At the same time, my mental health declined dramatically, and I started experiencing OCD symptoms and suicidal thoughts. And I was put on SSRIs and diagnosed with major depressive disorder, potentially bipolar type 2 with hypo.
A lot of these drugs, that newer drugs, that sort of thing, can cause a lot of this suicidal ideation and stuff. So it sounds like to me when she started taking Enbrel, she got results from that drug. But if you understood all of the potential risks associated with some of these new medications, in a lot of cases, like what you're trading is not worth it. So and plus long term, they don't even really understand what it's going to do to somebody. So when you stay on a particular drug, one of these new drugs, like you don't really know what you're risking. You don't know what the future holds and what it's really going to do to you long term. That is one of the problems with some drugs that seem to actually alleviate symptoms, but they don't fix the problem. They don't even really claim to fix the problem. They just claim to alleviate a lot of the symptoms. So in this case, it looks like the drugs that she was on caused the psychological effects that she was experiencing, that she's complaining from. Now, it could be that also when you're a little kid and you're having to inject yourself and you have all of this pain and 37 joints, I mean, that's horrifying for a little kid to go through. So, I mean, that also has to play a part in her depression. But, these new drugs are scary.
Mania. When I was in grade 8, I started experiencing the sensations of mosquitoes biting my whole body, and chronic fatigue. And by chronic fatigue, I mean I couldn't wake up and I was falling asleep in class. By the time I was in grade 11, my arthritis had gotten bad enough that it had destroyed all the cartilage in my right hip, and I stopped being able to sleep because of the pain and was put on OxyContin. And when I was 17, I had my hip replaced. While I was healing from my hip replacement, my body destroyed all the cartilage in my left ankle, and I ended up walking on basically broken bones. So I had my ankle replaced, so that was 17. I went off to university, and my mental health deteriorated further. They tried to stabilize me with Wellbutrin, and I ended up having a grand mal seizure at the university library. They tried to stabilize me with an SNRI, and I was so angry I felt like I could claw my skin off. But a year and a
So one thing I can really relate to is I was put on not SNRIs, but I was put on SSRIs. And also, in addition to that, I was put on benzodiazepines after I was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. And I had grand mal seizure and petit mal seizures. So and it was mainly due to the drug combinations. And it sounds like she had a basket full of pills herself. So, I know how much that sucks.
Half into university, this gets better, I swear. about a year and a half about a year and a half into university, I was so fatigued that I missed my final exams, and I dropped out and went home. When I got home, I started experiencing a rash on my back and on my bum and then on my face. And when it got to my face, I thought, okay, arthritis is one thing, idiopathic hypersomnia or chronic fatigue is one thing, chronic depression is one thing, but like a rash on my face, I cannot handle that. And I started researching. December 2014, the rash stopped healing. And I went to dermatologist after dermatologist, and they said, stop doing this, you're anxious. And I was like, okay, that's not super helpful. So I figured if I don't figure out what's wrong with me, I'm going to die because my body was destroying its tissues. At that point,
Did you notice what she said? Her doctors told her to stop researching because it was making her anxious. That's very, very telling. I didn't even pick up on that the first time I've actually watched this. I didn't pick up on that. That's what she meant, is that they told her not to research. Think about that for a second.
I was on Tylenol 3 to take at night because the shoulder pain was so bad from the arthritis that wasn't kept in check that I couldn't sleep. I was taking 40 milligrams of Adderall just to wake up in the morning because of the idiopathic hypersomnia. I was taking Dapsone, which is an antibiotic used to treat leprosy so that my skin would heal. I was taking 40 milligrams of escitalopram for the depression. I was taking an inhaler because if I got a cold, it would turn into bronchitis, that would turn into pneumonia, and I'd out.
And I believe that behind her is a list of all the medications that she was on, I think. It's hard to see.
In the hospital, because of the immune suppressants, I was taking a prescription strength antihistamine because I was so allergic to trees and grass that I was verging on anaphylaxis in the spring. Anyway, there were more. So I started researching, and I came across this rash eventually called dermatitis herpetiformis, which is the skin manifestation of celiac disease, which is an autoimmune disorder that can be triggered by gluten. And I thought, holy shit, is it celiac disease the whole time? So I cut out gluten. I went off of my immune suppressants, which weren't really working anyway, given the fact I'd lost a hip and an ankle. And I started monitoring my symptoms really closely to look for flare-ups. In September 2015, I reduced my diet further because cutting out gluten wasn't enough, and I thought, if I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life, researching, trying to figure out what's wrong with me, I might as well rule out diet. So I went down to meat and greens and certain root vegetables that I didn't really like carrots, sweet potatoes, parsnips. I cut out all.
I think that's funny that she kept in vegetables that she didn't even like to eat, which I think is kind of funny. It shows the brainwashing is really, really, really strong because we all believe that we have to eat vegetables. We must eat vegetables. It is required because they're so nutrition packed, and we're going to be screwed if we don't eat our vegetables. That to me is just funny that she left in a couple of vegetables and she didn't even like them. So
all the foods that I thought could be potentially causing inflammation. And that month, my skin healed for the first time in a number of years. I lost 3 pant sizes of bloating I didn't know I had. 2 months into that, my fatigue went away for the first time since grade 8, and I stopped taking Adderall. 3 months into that diet, my depression went away for the first time in my entire life. And I went from living in hell to being in heaven. A hell that I didn't know I'd been living in. And I thought, okay, well, I'm not taking any drugs ever again. And I stopped taking my SSRI over a 2-week period without realizing, because nobody told me, that SSRI withdrawal exists.
it's very bad. It's a bad, bad, bad thing. So if you take an SSRI for a very long time, you have to get weaned off of it. It's not pretty, and she describes what happened to her. it's very dangerous to just immediately go cold turkey on that. Because, I mean, think about it. It's selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So it's messing around with your serotonin levels. Your brain chemistry has been hijacked, plain and simple. And if your brain chemistry's been hijacked for years and years, you're in for quite the experience trying to get off of it, unfortunately.
And for the next 2 years, I had the most horrific experiences of my entire life, and that is saying something. I reintroduced soy a couple of weeks after I went off of SSRIs, and I had a full-blown autoimmune response. And it started with my digestion was upset, my entire body got itchy. The next day, my depression was back worse than I'd ever experienced, and I got into the shower and thought, how could I be so arrogant as to think I could control this disease with diet? And
I think a lot of people who go carnivore think that. At first, you know, in the days, it took me 3 days to actually cure a lot of the things that were wrong with me. But a lot of the other things, it took like, you know, months or a month or so for it to start to really significantly go away. And when it did, I didn't really believe it. Like, it seemed too good to be true. Like, why would I think that I know more than all of the doctors who know better than me, who, you know, the medical industry and all of the, you know, all of these professionals. Like, who am I to even try to think that this has anything to do with the reason that I feel so bad? Which is, I think, is a common reaction. And that, and also, like she said, she felt like she was in heaven because she had been in hell, but she didn't know it. And I think a lot of us feel like it just is too good to be true. It's like a dream, or somebody's going to pinch you, especially when you're miserable. When you're miserable and sick for long, long, long periods of time, and all of a sudden something as simple as what you put in your mouth fixes you, it's a lot of people don't talk about the emotional experience of that. But I mean, think about it. I think about the fact that I was feeding it to my kid. I was feeding garbage to my children. I was feeding my kids candy. I was, you know, when I was at my worst, I was 100 pounds overweight. I didn't want to do anything. I missed out on so much. It's really a lot to go through. And people don't talk about the emotional aspect of really coming to this revelation that food is destroying your life. When you actually figure that out, it's heavy. I mean, I guess that's all I can say is it's a really heavy kind of thing.
cried. 4 days later, I had mouth ulcers, my arthritis was back, my rash was back, and I got my brother to drive me home from my parents because I didn't think I could drive. And I got out of the car and I went to my apartment, I turned around, and my brother's head looked like that. For about 2 seconds, he looked at me and he went off, and then it was my brother again. And I thought, oh my God, I just stopped taking all my medication and now I'm insane. So for the next year, I went in and out of what I now know was SSRI withdrawal mixed with an autoimmune disorder and food sensitivities, and I had 24-day-long reactions each time I tried to reintroduce a food. About a year after that, I figured maybe I'll just stop reintroducing foods and not experience this. And at that time, I got pregnant, which I didn't even know I would be able to do given all the medications I'd been on. I went down to Meat and Greens to try and get my symptoms under control. And a year after that, I was breastfeeding, getting out of bed, my wrist buckled. I thought, okay, I have to do something because I'm worried I'm going to drop my baby. The arthritis was back, I was itchy everywhere, and I was like, how is this possible? If I'd experienced remission, why isn't that diet working anymore? And I cut everything out except for beef. And 2 weeks after doing that, thinking I'm nuts and hopefully I don't get vitamin deficiencies, the itch went away and my joints started to feel better. 4 weeks after that, so 6 weeks after an all-beef diet, the depression lifted and I stopped crying in the morning. And 5 months after that, the anxiety lifted and I was back in what I felt was heaven compared to how I'd been living. So that's all beef, all lamb, salt, and water. Now, I've been talking about this diet
Now, those are ruminant animals, which has to do with the fact that, if you don't know, the ruminant animals have a digestive system that basically allows them to process out more toxins. So if you're very sensitive, which she's extremely sensitive to a lot of different things, and her father is the same way. He couldn't even eat salad. Like when she was telling him about this diet, because he suffered from depression, a lot of stuff. He had a laundry list of things wrong with him too. And when she was describing it to him, he went on it, and it works for him. He's a carnivore. He's been a carnivore for years now. It solved his problems. But at first, he couldn't believe that he couldn't even have salad. He's like, "What do you mean? I can't even have salad?" I mean, with it, but he really couldn't. He could not eat anything but lion diet. I'm pretty sure he's on lion diet as well. So, that's the thing with this is, you feel crazy when you actually propose doing this, going on something this restrictive, but it's something that you'll do because you're actually not miserable anymore. When you're in this kind of hell, you'll do just about anything to get out of it. So,
Spread awareness and in hopes that the medical community can take something like this seriously. My mom went on the diet and her osteoarthritis went away. My dad went on the diet and he lost 70 pounds. His GERDs went away. He had psoriasis. That went away. I've talked to thousands of people with autoimmune disorders who've done similar things and seen similar results. So, that is me now. That is my kid. I'm a CEO. I'm a podcaster. I try to share my experience to get people to see what this kind of diet does for me. I call it the lion diet because it's not cool to be this restricted, and it's not cool to have an autoimmune disorder and people who are sick feel isolated and miserable. So I'm trying to make it cool, but what would be really cool would be if the medical community could take this seriously and do some case studies.
I thought that was an amazing story. Just to be that young and to have the hip replacement and the ankle replacement, that's horrifying. And the rash and everything else. I mean, this is a lifetime spent in absolute misery, just medical misery. And the thing is, she mentions autoimmune, this, that, and the other a lot. What I see happening and what the reality I think is, and it's becoming more apparent every day. Again, I don't have evidence of this, but I think anecdotally, if we look around, the garbage that everybody eats, our bodies are reacting to it. And sure, it's an autoimmune, it's an attack on our system, but it's like, what is causing it? It is the garbage that we call food. We're eating things that are not food. We're meant to eat food for sustenance, not all of this junk that everyone's consuming. And it's causing all of these, what I like to refer to, or other people have referred to as diseases of the West. These diseases that didn't exist before, where everybody's got all of these problems like Crohn's, and the diabetes is going out of control. The type 2 diabetes that is completely reversible. And I mean, you just go on and on. Fibromyalgia, which is essentially a diagnosis code. All of the mental health problems. If we consume things that are not food, that are harmful to us, I mean, what do you expect is going to happen? But I think, when it comes to TEDx censoring her talk, I think it had more to do with that list of drugs. I mean, that's horrifying. The list of drugs that she was on from as a child, and this laundry list of medication that she was given by multiple doctors, and she ends up just changing what she eats and she fixes herself. That doesn't look very good for the pharmaceutical industry. It looks really, really damning for the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industrial complex. All of the doctors that never asked why, telling her that she shouldn't do research because it'll just make her anxious, And we're just too stupid to understand what to do, basically. Just let the experts handle everything, you know. And my biggest problem with this is that the experts do not give good service. I asked recently, I was on Dave Mack's channel, and I asked, you know, Dave, have you ever gone into a doctor's office and, you know, after you've been treated, symptom after symptom's been treated, and no one's ever done anything to fix anything, and all they do is give you prescriptions. Have you ever gone to the front desk and said, I really go full Karen and say, I demand to speak to your manager because the last time I was here, I got some really shitty service.
I would like to speak to the manager, please.
I am the manager.
And you guys suck. And you're just making everything worse. And have you ever seen anybody get a refund? No. And you're not going to see anybody get a refund because that's just the way it works. We're supposed to just accept everything and swallow what it is they give us, when we're just a medicated nation. And the medications half of the time don't even work to even help the symptoms. A lot of the times they do. They allow you to manage the symptoms so that you can keep killing yourself with the standard American diet. But anyway, I'll have to, you know, put my tinfoil hat back on later. But my point is, this was a very, very, very amazing story, especially since she was so sick from when she was such a small child. I mean, that's terrifying. And if she can actually turn things around, given what she was facing, you know, there's a lot of people with a lot less problems, but they live in the same reality where they think their version of normal, their baseline, they don't even recognize that they're living in a hell. And when you actually change and watch what you eat, and especially going on this carnivore diet, a lot of people wouldn't even know that they felt as bad as they do until they actually try it. So let me know in the comments below what you think about all of this. Why do you think TEDx censored her talk? What do you think's up with that? And what do you think about all of the autoimmune scourge that plagues us? Like, what do you think about all these diseases of the West? Do you think they're actually organic diseases, or do you think they're caused by the foods that we eat, or the non-foods that we eat, rather? Let me know your comments below, and I will be really glad to hear your perspective on things. So if you like this video, if you could give me a like, I'd really appreciate it. And if you would like to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.